Welcome to Royal Table Talk. My name is Toyia Hampton, and I am your host. So today we're gonna have a little conversation about Department of Children and Family Services. And I know people look like, raw, that's the monster. That's the monster in the community. They're called the baby snatchers. They don't want to see me be successful. They want to destroy families. They on a power trip. I mean, I've heard so many different things about the department, and I myself had the department in my life. And I have to tell you this really honest and concise. My children were detained because of the choices that I made. My children was returned because of decisions that I made. And so when you look at it that way, you bring it in, make it personal, it makes it easier for us to make those changes. So, 1998, there was a phone call. There was a phone call made to the Department of Children and Family Services who said, I just gave birth to a baby at the Antelope Valley Hospital, and the baby was born positive for alcohol, marijuana, and cocaine. I smoked a good joint, went into labor, had the baby. Social workers was called, a hotline. The first process of the social workers being involved in our life is a phone call to the hotline. The hotline received the information, and then it was forwarded to what they call a DI. It's an investigator, the department investigator. Her job was to come to the hospital where I was, investigate what was going on. So she shows up to the hospital, asking several questions. How often do you use? Is this a one time isolated event? Um, do you think maybe you need drug treatment, alcohol treatment, things of the sort? Not only did she investigate me, she needed right away to go to my house to see if and what was going on at the home. She showed up to the house, probably a few minutes straight out the hospital, straight to the home. I'm still in the hospital with the baby. She looks around the house and find out that I had everything the kids needed. The house was really, really neat, nice and clean. The kids all had food. It was wonderful. She, the kid came home with me. Later on, after I got the orders, she suggested make sure you do what they call a contact. The contact information that they need is visual, dental, and medical. So you need to make sure the kids have all their appointments up to date. I know sometimes as parents we got stuff going on. I want to reschedule, especially with the COVID. We don't want our kids to be up in the doctor's face. You don't know what they can get. Well, I went to LA to get that done and got stuck out there. Now, in the process that I was in LA, some other things took place and got into some altercations with my kid's father, and it was very physical. Well, I drove back up to the Antelope Valley. Now, I still had the DI worker. That DI worker is investigating your family, asking questions, doing reports, requesting information from you. I needed to go down to see the doctor because I just moved up to Antelope Valley. I went to LA to see my kids to take my kids to see the dentist and all those things. Well, I got stuck, and so I didn't follow through. I didn't follow through what the plan was. It was considered a safety plan in order for my kids to stay home. Today, 22 years down the line, I know what it is. At that point in time, I had no clue. So by the time I made it back up to the Antelope Valley, which was like 2.5, almost 3 weeks, which was February the 3rd, February the 3rd, I came up to the Antelope Valley. There was a card on my door that said I needed to go see the department, see the social worker. So what I did was I got up that morning and I called. I said, "Hey, I received a card, and I'm just calling you back because now I'm in compliance. I'm back in town. I'm gonna do what she said. The kids seen the doctor. I got the paperwork." When I came, she said, "Well, I need you to come in town so I could help you get a Medi-Cal card because I did not have a Medi-Cal card." And I did say that. I said, "Well, I was able to get something done for the other kids, but I didn't have a Medi-Cal card, so the baby couldn't be seen." She said, "Well, come on in, and I'll help you get a Medi-Cal card." So, needless to say, I drove. I took a few kids to school because at that point I had 7 children. I took a few kids to school. I took my older daughter with me with a couple of the boys, and then my other children were at school. So once I got there, because I was not in compliance, right? My contacts didn't work because the baby, who was most important, did not get his checkup. Secondly, I was gone for 2 weeks. When you are ordered to do something, excuse me, suggested to do something by the department, the same thing they suggest to you, they're going to suggest to the court. And so I wasn't in compliance. Sure enough, they detained the children, and I tried to drive all the way to where I live to get to the other kids before they got there, to pick them up. And when I got in the hospital, excuse me, when I got to the school, the teacher knew me well because I'm the kind of mother that volunteers at my kids' school. And she called me in the office and she says, I need you to know that child welfare picked the children up this morning. Is everything okay? Is there something I can help you with? They was really, really helpful all the way down until she moved from that school. I had a relationship with this principal and the teachers and, a lot of people at the school. But I share that story because I fell short with what they ordered me to do. Well, excuse me, suggested. I keep using the terminology order because it becomes an order, but it's a suggestion at first. And so I did those things that was suggested. They suggested that I go into treatment. They suggested that I do parenting class and domestic violence classes for victims. They suggested that I do drug testing. And I have to tell you, so many times in this practice, so many people like, if it ain't ordered, I'm not doing it. They can't tell me what to do. Well, think about your children, right? Because the longer you take to comply with what the suggestions are before they turn into a court order, the longer it takes for reunification with your children. Well, there's this program process that's called the ASFA laws, and you get 18 months. You get 18 months to get it together before those kids are most likely lost in the system, adopted out, legal guardianship. I don't know about you, but there was nothing on this earth that could keep me from my babies. I mean, absolutely nothing. So every single thing that they told me to do, I wanted to jump. How high? Where you want me to go? What you want me to do? I was very angry at first. And so I get a chance to see people come in here because we have an agency. I see people come through the door and they're pissed off, they're irritated, they're restless, or they're confused. My job, because I've been there, is to support them. Like, I understand. And I think sometimes people get irritated with me because they want to just bash the department. But here's what I know. If there's no reasonable cause, there's no safety risk, or the SDM does not say that the kids are not safe, the likelihood of them removing right away is not as high as it used to be way back when, right? So you have chances and decisions to make as a parent. Do I want to get these people in and out of my life so I can keep my kids in my home? It's sad to say that so many of our parents come here, and again, no judgment because I'm in recovery. I just made 22 years sober. I made that conscious decision to get sober because I wanted my children back, and somewhere down the line, I recognized that I wanted to just overall change my life and be somebody different. But what comes to my mind is how many parents that come through the door that are here to drug test, and they like, oh, I just smoke weed. It's legal. I could who are they to tell me that I can't smoke weed? If somebody tell me that I need to drug test you for 6 months and I need you to be sober so you can get your kids, I am going to stop smoking weed. I did, right? And they was like, well, your numbers are too high, and people thinking, let me drink a whole bunch of cranberry juice, let me drink a whole lot of water, let me drink some golden seals, let me drink some echinacea. All of these things people are trying to do to clear their tests up. I say, from one birth parent to another who's involved with the department, get yourself sober, get your kids out of the system, and then if the doctor prescribes it and you must have it, then that's something different. But don't let drinking and using drugs keep you from your child. Because what I know to be true is these babies grow up with that emptiness inside because they don't know who their mother is. Now, my mother was there, but I don't know who my mother is. So mama's an alcoholic and an addict. It was men always before me. drugs always before me, so I never really truly had a relationship with my mother. And so if there's something that I can do as a person who's been through the department to empower you, to give you some strategies, and I'm going to give you some strategies on how to get those kids out of care, get those kids home sooner, quicker, faster. Get yourself educated with what's your right as a parent. What am I required to do? How much time do I have? What should I do when I go visit my children? These are the things that you need to know to get in and get out. That's not something you want. You don't want the department in your life forever. Okay, so I'm going to share this fact. Right now, I'm 51 years old. I have 9 God given children. And I have 9 biological children and 1 God given child. Every last one of my children have been affected by child welfare in some form or another because of my choices. Not only my children, but my grandchildren. And so that vicious cycle continues unless we as parents do something different. Now, granted, you may be ordered to take a parenting class. I don't need no parenting class. I've been raising kids all my life. Hmm. How they doing in school? How they doing at home? How they doing emotionally? You know, all these things you have to take into consideration when you're parenting children. Now, when the department stepped in my life, at that point, I had 6 kids and had just gave birth to, so I had my 7th child. I felt like I knew everything about raising children. When all I knew how to do was make sure they was dressed nice and neat and clean. I knew how to feed them. My house was always nice, neat, and clean. But on the flip side of it, they seen mama drunk all the time. They seen mama fighting all the time. And mama didn't even know how to give them love and hugs that they needed. Those kids need hugs. They needed to know that mama was there. And then when I got my life together, I spent the next 10 to 20 years worrying about giving back to others. So then at that point, I still missed out on some of the parenting that I didn't get when I was in group, right? So if you order to take a parenting class, take the parenting class. It won't kill you. I promise you'll learn something different, something in your life. And if you're a woman and you've taken parenting class, you feel like they can't teach you nothing, come to Two Lifestyles. I guarantee you we can show you something different. With all of the women on the call, you don't get content just from me. You get it from all of the women on the phone call. We support and nurture. We have a close-knit group, and we support one another. So many parents struggle with visitation. Now, when you get a chance to see your kid, the law says within 72 hours you should be able to see your kid. That's what the paperwork say. That's the policy. Let me say that. That's the policy. Within 72 hours, you should be able to see your kids, right? Within, so it can be 24, 52, 72. Within, you should be able to see your kids after detention. However, the practice haven't always been that way because sometimes the kids are going down the hill, they're not local, then a lot of paperwork has to be done. But be armed with facts about policies and practice. You have rights as a parent. So let me say this, visitation. When you get visits with your kids, that is the #1 indicator for reunification. Let me tell you what that means. If your kids are in care and you're missing visits consistently, periodically, they're looking at the fact, why mom missing visits? The kids are not most important. Why mom not spending time with the kids? Are the kids continuously trying to bond with mom or dad? So I'm not leaving dads out. I'm talking about moms just because it's a women empowerment program. But this content is for every parent, right? Um, and then when I move down, I want to really talk about that connection with dad. So if the kids are in care, the case plan is always have been since 1971 under the mother's name. So even if dad had care of the kids, they're still going to go to the mother. The case will always be under the mother's name. So mom get a case, the kids are in care, I'm not making visits. Well, who is suffering is the children. You have to have so many visits before you get unmonitored visits, before you get overnights, weekends, and then reunification. So there is a step tier process that you have to go through before those kids come home. I know Why they take my kids all at once and then don't want to give them back at once? That's not how it works. If your kids are in your care and you're used to them consistently every single day, then you go out and you get educated, you get empowered, you learn some new strategies, you learn some new things. Hopefully, the kids are getting the same thing somewhere else. But don't forget, the kids are in somebody else's home. No matter if it's your mother's home, your sister's home, or a foster home, or their dad's home, they're still getting different information that you have. So once you guys come together, it's a slow process of rebonding. You have to learn. And so to get 7 kids in your house at one time don't make sense. And I have to tell you, I was pissed off. And I kept saying, oh, they took my kids all at once. Why they don't give them all back to me? Well, October the 31st, 1999, my house was crazy. Everybody came home for an overnight weekend. Some had already been home, and the other one was an extended. And then the 2 other boys came for overnights. My house was completely bonkers. Why? Because they all hadn't been there. I hadn't been sober. They hadn't had mom teaching them structure. They didn't know that all of these rules and regulations that I just learned, that they have to live that way. So it was chaotic. And then I understood at that point, that's why they don't give them all to you at once. They have to, gradually give them to you as you begin to adjust and implement the new strategies that you've learned as a parent. So, when you're making these visits, I don't care if it's raining, hailing, sleeking, storming outside, get your body to your visit. Stop making excuses not to visit. I got to go to work. You want me to have a job? No, you adjust your life to your classes and your visits. Period. Right? Say, for instance, you get a part-time job. In the morning you can work because later on you got one-on-ones, you got parenting classes, and you got visits. You still need to work. That's what a productive parent does. You shift your life around regaining custody of your children or maintaining custody of your children. So in your visits, don't come with a whole lot of toys and gifts because we're parenting out of guilt, right? We want to bring them all these toys to show them that we love them. They just want to be with us. They want to know that you love them. They want to know that you care. They don't care about all those gifts. And another side effect of those gifts, if you start giving those kids all those gifts, every time you see them, they want something. And then when you don't have anything, then you're really like, where are my gifts at? So the best thing to do when you're visiting is make some home cooked food. It don't have to be expensive. Just something that they love. Make a pot of spaghetti if you got a lot of kids. Something that your children love. Take that food to them. Sit down and eat with them. Play board games with them. Get a Uno deck. Play Uno with your children. Those simple things are some of the things that can help you guys reunify, bond, and reconnect as a family. So you show up to your visit. You got your games, your Uno cards. You got your spaghetti. You know, as a parent, you must always discipline your children. You get a kid that slaps all of the cards off the table. Well, you're being monitored and you're being watched, so you're afraid. I don't know what to say. I don't know what to parent. I don't know how. You can say, that's unacceptable. Now get down there and pick them cards up. That's what a responsible adult would do. The department is looking for you to be a responsible adult, not sit there and let the kids run all over you because you are in fear. You are still the parent. You are still responsible. Hopefully, in your parenting classes, you've learned logical and natural consequences and leveraging rewards and charts. If you've learned those things in your life, they actually truly work if the kids grow up with that, right? And you keep pushing it on them, they'll get it. Okay? So, you discipline them. You tell them, no, you can't play Uno cards with us. You pick those cards up and you sit down for a while, and maybe the next couple hands will let you play if you know how to be responsible. That's okay. That's what responsible adult parents do. We teach and guide and discipline our children. Discipline is not corporal punishment. You don't always have to whoop a kid. Actually, it's against the law, right? There's so many parents that say, I pop my kid. I'm a pop my kid if I want to. These are my kids. Well, if you are a part of the Department of Children and Family Services, there is a court order in place, most likely sometimes, that says no corporal punishment. Then don't do it. Okay, just period. And so as a parent, we kind of feel like all of these laws has prevented us from being a parent. I want to say, as a mother with many children, just learn what works for the kids. What works for this kid don't work for that kid. I had a kid, every time you turn around, that boy was outside the house, no matter. Everybody had been in the house, and then you got one missing. Where he at? He gone. Always gone, right? So that's about visitation. Um, I want to cover a relationship with your worker. So I know you mad, you pissed off. My kid's been detained. They're treating me wrong. This favorite one, that's how they treat black people. I mean, all of these things that I've heard over the years. And I want to say this: get off the pity pot and take those strategies that you need to take and those steps toward regaining custody of your children. Those are your children, okay? Nobody else's. And I think so many times we don't go back to reunify because the social worker says this or they say that, and it makes you feel bad, especially when you get that first report. I'm sitting in court, it's pouring down raining outside. It's in February, I think like February the 12th ish. I'm sitting in the Antelope Valley court. I go look out the window. It's raining really hard. People running with their umbrellas. And all of a sudden, cloop, 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 cloop. There's a lady who walks up and says, "Latoya Conway." I'm quiet. I keep looking out the window. "Latoya Conway." So I said, "Hi, that's me." She gives me this package about this big of lies, disrespect, disregard, belittling, all of the things you could ever imagine was in that very first packet, right? She hands it to me. At that point, I didn't know. I said, "Thank you, ma'am." She said, "Your attorney will meet with you before you go in the courtroom." I said, "You're not my attorney?" "No, I'm his secretary." Boom, clunk, 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 clunk. She walks down the hallway. Now, at that point, I wasn't a good reader. I couldn't really understand a lot of the court verbiage. So I open it up. There's my name. There's my kids, and each kid on the case has a number, starting with the oldest kid. So my oldest daughter was number one, and my baby was number seven. So instead of it saying the child's full name, it says child number one, do 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 do. Child number two, do 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 do. Think about your kids in the order that they are, and that's the number that they are. So I'm reading this report, and it says a lot of demoralizing things that I would never, ever, ever, ever allow my kids to see or for me to do around my children. So I'm reading this report and I'm crying. And of course, my kid's father is sitting next to me, and then he's cussing. "Yeah, all you had to do was da 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 da," right? And I'm reading this report, and I feel like a failure because the one thing, I used to be a cat person. The one thing that a kitty cat always had was her kittens. She would get them all up one at a time, and I always related to a cat because she take care of them. You come, she got you, and now they call me Mama Bear. Imagine that, right? And so I'm looking at this report, and they're saying a lot of things that didn't happen, that wasn't the truth, that wasn't said, that was combined, that was twist, that was wrong, that was lies. And so I felt like a piece of crap. And that was just the stuff that I could read. Imagine what the rest of the stuff said. And at that point, I decided these people are lying on me. And whatever it takes for me to regain custody of my children, I will do. I go into court, and this is what it sounds like, you guys. I kid you not. Latoya Conway Hampton, the baby daddy's name, the kids. Wonk, 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 wonk. Next court is coming up. Wonk, wonk, wonk. March. Wonk, wonk, wonk. That's what I heard. And then the attorney came. He came out and he said, "Okay, I'll see you in March." I said, "For what? The kids ain't coming home?" He said, "No, they detain your children, and there's some things you must do." Now, I said, "Okay, well, what is it?" Then they give me a package this big full of resources of names of agencies that they want me to go to. I didn't have no money. I couldn't read. I couldn't spell. I didn't have a cell phone. I didn't have a house phone. I just had that car left at that point in my RV. And so I was like, they didn't even have cell phones in them days. Sorry, Charlie, or a prepaid phone probably. But I think that at that point, I didn't have enough resources. I didn't have enough resources that I needed. I didn't know what visitation was. I didn't know where I was going to see my kid. I didn't know when I was going to see the attorney next. I didn't know what a social worker was or what to do. After spending 24 months in the child welfare system, I decided when I regained custody of my children that I would go back and make changes. I don't like how they did this. I don't like how they did that. I don't like that. I felt like this. This went that way. And so I started working at a drug rehabilitation center, which the one I was court ordered is my favorite treatment place, Tarzana Treatment Center. So I went to Tarzana Treatment Center, and once I started sharing, they realized that I was a good orator. So they started sending me out in the community giving presentations. And one day DCFS heard me share my story about the process, and they invited me on. So you may feel wronged about what the department is doing to you. Granted, it may be wrong. There is definitely a disparity on how African American families are treated in the system. It's proven. The federal government proved it. They traveled me all over the country to make sure that those things look differently when I worked on a national level because they know that the system is biased the way it's set up. So, if you feel somewhere, somehow that your treatment is not fair, I want to encourage you. Please fight, but fight on the other side. Don't fight in the middle of the process because what you're doing is keeping your kids in the system much longer. You don't want your babies in the system. My kids got drugged, dog licking on my baby's face. My kids went through so much that I can't even tell you on this live today when they were in care. And so I want to encourage you to get it done. If you need a support person that could advocate for you, I am one of the Antelope Valley's cultural brokers, and what that is that if African American families are being, not even being mistreated, if you need some support or somebody advocating for you, somebody explaining to you what's going on, and I do this for everybody, but if you're an African American person and you need expertise in that area, then I can support you, okay? Just in general, I just want to make sure that all families get home sooner, faster, and together because the process with the child welfare system it's been prolonged because of the COVID. So many of the people that I work, they don't get to have visits. They don't know where their kids are. Their foster parents are not allowing families to engage. My encouragement to you is to start a relationship with your social worker. No, she not your best friend. He not your best friend, but he is the worker who is taking care of your family. So many times people are like, oh my God, I've been calling my worker all week. They're not responding. Well, baby, you're not the only client that they have. Secondly, are you calling on a day that's their regular day off? RDO. Officer's regular day off. Is it the day that they're off every single week? Then you might want to take that into consideration. And then if you calling them 15 and 20 times, I'm not answering your call either. Call me and give me a chance to call you back, okay? At least call me twice because sometimes one time ain't good enough. I'm going to speak for me. You got to call me more than once because I'll be all over the place. But build that relationship with your social worker. Now, granted, some of the social workers are very young, and I hear so often, they don't have no kids. How they going to tell me how to parent my child? And you may be right. Sometimes they do come in with bias, but your job is to bridge that gap because on the other side of that rainbow is your babies. Now, you can pick and choose if you want those kids at home with you right now or if you want to fight for I'm not going to say fight for your rights. That's not appropriate. If you want to fight using the information that you have, because it is your right to be a parent. You birth these children. But guess what? If the department step in and say somewhere that there was a safety concern, then they have the right to detain. The federal government said they can detain. But you as a mother or a father have the right to fight to regain custody of your children. And it's not easy. They would tell me, do this, I do that, that wasn't enough. Do this, I do that, that wasn't enough. Here's the thing. They suggested that I take a domestic violence class. Okay, I do that. I'm in Tarzana outpatient. I take a domestic violence class. Then I got in trouble because I was dating somebody on the premises, and then I went out and hung out with my ex partner and got high, and so that was an issue. And so what they suggested was that I go to Tarzana Long Beach. In Tarzana Long Beach, I was ordered by my counselor to do domestic violence in house and domestic violence out house. So I took 2 classes a week for domestic violence. And I have to tell you, I'm so grateful that I did. And even after that, I went back to a shelter. So in my journey, I've experienced a lot of support. And I had a lot of pushback at first. But when I realized, when I came humble to my social worker, the supervisors, when I did what they asked me to do because it was reasonable, I got much further. I began to work my case plan. I started understanding that I had rights. I started understanding the importance of being a mother and a mother to my children. And so when I started to do that, you guys, my relationship with my worker got better. Before she passed, and um, again, it's been 20 years for me, but before she passed, she started referring all of her clients to me that had DV situations that was really hard to handle, because she would say, she remind me of you, Latoya. I need you to help her out. Because, I'm clear. I'm a handful. Because if I want something, I'm going to go get it, period, point blank. And they had my kids, and I wasn't stopping until I got them. And they did not come home, as I said earlier, all together. The 2 girls came home a few months later. I got 3 boys, my oldest son and my 2 baby boys, and then I got one son, and then I got another son. And that they trickled home that way so I could keep them home. And by the grace, they have not been removed from me ever since, because I made decisions in my life. I made healthier choices in my life. I'm far from perfect, because a woman would, at that time I have 7, now I got 9. A woman with 9 kids got a lot of chaos going on in the house most of the time. And so I was able to navigate. So I've been there. Allow me to support you through your process. Don't sit on the sideline allowing your mother to raise your kids, or allowing your family members to raise your kids, or even leaving your kids in the system because you don't want to comply. Just do it. Like the Nike sign. Just do it. And let me tell you this. I've been blessed with a godchild. And I remember when she first came in my life, she kept saying, "Would you be my mom?" Not at first. She wanted to meet her mother. So because I had access, I found her mother. But when I found her mother 2 years prior to that, her mother passed. So I found her family members, and I linked her with her family. And what she asked me was, well, would I be her mom? And I'm looking like I messed up. I lost my own kids, and now this kid asking me to be her mom. What I realized is that she had that connection to me. I connect with people that way because I didn't have a mother, right? And so I understand that disconnect because I need what they need and we need each other, right? So later on down the years, she's now a mother as well. And so I find myself always reaching back, not just with her, but with other people who was disconnected from their mother, because that's the connection I have. I had that same disconnection. And so as a mother and a father, do you want your kids to grow up feeling disconnected from you because you couldn't stop drinking or using, or because you couldn't get out of the relationship? Now, mental health, that's different. If somebody is mentally incapable of being a mother or a father to their child because it's not safe, that's different. But when you're choosing as an alcoholic or an addict to use drugs and alcohol, or you're choosing to stay in an unhealthy relationship versus doing what's necessary to regain custody of your children, then it's looked at a little different. And so before I end, I want to say this and a shout out to all the fathers out there. I am a soon to be 52-year-old woman. There was nothing that I could do without my father. My mother and father were not together, and thank God he made the conscious decision to change his life because my mother couldn't at the time. My dad came and taught me everything about sex, about drinking, about drugs, about everything, my cars, paint, fixing. It was my father who took the time to do that. So, for all you fathers out there, that have children, please take the time to rear your children. It's good to be a stepfather and love your children, but think about your babies, the children that you birthed. We are empty without a relationship with our parents. There is a hole, right? It's a hole inside of us when mom's missing and dad's missing. And so I want to say to you, fathers, that I hear so often. I wasn't there when the kids got in the system. She got in trouble. Well, that's the part that you played in your kids being in care. You was not there. You weren't there. Had you been there for your children, even though mom wasn't equipped or had her own challenges, you would have been a backup plan. But because you had other things going on in your life, then you wasn't there. So this is my attempt to let you know that I've been there. I've regained custody of my children. They're all home with me. Mom and dads, pull it together. Work with the department. You are an expert on your children. No one else is. And if your kid's been in a care for a long period of time and your life have changed, legal guardianship, other people have them, you can go back to the court and file a 388. But what you need to do is you need to show the court that your life has changed. You've taken these classes. Maybe now you have a home. Maybe now you're sober. Maybe now you have a job. You have some consistency because the concern that the department had 8, 7, 6, 5 years ago may not be the same concern because the kid is older and the risk factor is different. And so I want to say this. Please don't leave your children out there. Parents, they need you. Thank you so much. My name is Latoya Conway Hampton, and I have been there.